Hi, this is Matt at State of Flux here with another review from my Godzilla collection. This is Godzilla 1984, which has been retitled The Return of Godzilla, or if you saw it stateside, it would have been released on VHS as Godzilla 1985. I'm going to give you two reviews for this, one for The Return of Godzilla and one for Godzilla 1985. So let's start with The Return of Godzilla. First of all, I had never seen this movie until this week. I had only ever seen Godzilla in 1985. It was one of the early Godzilla movies that I saw, and I did not like it. I did not respond well to it. I never have, and I was sorely disappointed with that film. It's a case similar to Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters, where the film took the Japanese cut, kind of butchered it to some extent, slapped in some American characters, and released it to the public. However, in doing so, you've lost the essence of what this story is trying to say. This movie is sort of designed as a direct sequel to the original Gojira. And Return of Godzilla works for the most part in that, at least certainly in tone. Tonally, this is the most consistent film with that first movie. You have a deep allegory of nuclear destruction, and Godzilla is present in the wake of that. What I found interesting and how they updated that is every bit as much as Godzilla is a nuclear threat in the film, he is also not the only adversary that Japan must go up against. They are caught in negotiational ties with the United States and Russia, and how they sort of place the theory, and I'm gonna use a variant of it, which is the only way to stop a bad guy with a nuke is with a good guy with a nuke. And this film kind of plays on that idea, that notion. And that this movie tackles the kind of subject of nuclear action and nuclear inaction, and how that can be dangerous, and how Godzilla can come about because of that, and flourish to some extent because of that. This gets a little sciencey at times, however the science doesn't really play as well for me as it did with the original Gojira, and I would have liked it better if this had acknowledged in some way that the original Godzilla had died. This doesn't reference really that at all, that hey, it was dead for 30 years and now it's back. You don't really get that. You do get the Godzilla has returned, but there's no question as to why that is. I think that's one of the few criticisms I do have with it. However, the storyline of these scientists who are trying to discover a way to get rid of Godzilla, there's no true way to get rid of the effects of nuclear action, is what the film lands on. You can't do that. However, once it's done, it is done. However, you can mitigate the effects by kind of hurting them and corralling them elsewhere. And this is an interesting film because it tackles probably one of the first ones I've ever seen anyway, pre-Jurassic Park, to tackle the fact that Godzilla is descended from the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs evolved from birds, and so they use the scientists kind of figure out a way to herd Godzilla through migrational tactics into a volcano pit and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting that this movie predated Jurassic Park, both book and movie, by some considerable amount of time, and still tackles the whole dinosaurs come from birds thing. That was kind of neat. But the human element of the movie kind of works. This is a really long it's not a long film, it's an hour and 40 minutes or whatever, but it's a nice slow burn. there's no moment wherein you're bored. You are kind of invested, and when Godzilla shows up, he is truly haunting, truly terrifying. And that's not something you've gotten ever since that first movie. This plays into the horror of Godzilla. I thought it was kind of neat on two fronts, of how this movie borrowed inspiration from a previous Godzilla movie and how it would go on to inspire another one. So, let's talk about where it gained inspiration. It's weird that Godzilla vs. Hedorah is one of the more maligned Godzilla films. It's my second favorite of the Showa era films. Yet Godzilla operates kind of similarly to Hedorah in this film, and it's kind of weird that that is the case, because this is a well-liked Godzilla movie. Certainly the return of Godzilla is well-liked. And it's sort of like, pardon me, takes some of those same Hedorah beats and uses Godzilla for them in this picture, which I thought was just kind of interesting. The framework of this movie is almost identical to the framework, at least, of the first half of the 1998 American Godzilla movie. A lot of people criticize that film for not being particularly Godzilla-y, and that film definitely used this as like its baseline of how to structure the story. It kind of deviates in different ways, but certainly the first half of that film is very much modeled after the first half of this film. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I thought this was a movie that was smart, it said something, it kept me invested, it's well written, well acted, beautifully shot. I like the look of this movie. Whereas like some of those 60s Godzilla movies kind of had a very samey look to them, and that's because a lot of them were directed or spearheaded by the same people. That's one of the things I liked about Godzilla vs. Hedorah, is that it has a very distinct look, as does any of the ones that Jun Fukuda touched. But this film is the first film that felt modern in its visual storytelling. Like you could watch this today and feel like it's, I mean, you can obviously tell it's 80s because of hairstyles and music and stuff like that, but you can definitely see more modern sensibilities in filmmaking with this film that was not present in a single movie prior to it. Those are the praises. The score is, for the most part, okay. I would have liked the traditional Godzilla theme, but whatever. The one that they use in this works. Godzilla's introduction in this is pretty strong. Just the use of Godzilla throughout the film in general is good. This is a good movie, a very strong 3-star movie, bordering on 3.5, but it does kind of get a little slow for a little while there, where Godzilla's asleep for like 40 minutes. That probably could have been tighter paced, but good movie nonetheless. Pivoting over to the American counterpart that I was less keen on, which is Godzilla 1985. The problem when America got their hands on a lot of these Godzilla movies is they stripped the film from meaning. And both with this film and with Godzilla King of the Monsters, you can look at it and see some meaning left intact. But by and large, anything that the film is trying to ultimately say doesn't really get said in any meaningful way with the recuts. And that's a disservice to the film. I think Godzilla King of the Monsters is infinitely stronger and done really well comparatively to this one. This one just seems like they didn't want to offend anybody stateside, so they were going to just tinker around a little bit and bring back the Steve Martin character, which is cool that Raymond Burr came back, and he almost makes it worth it. Anytime he's on screen, he's good, and in fact, his closing monologue is really strong, and that's the only thing that I was missing from the Return of Godzilla. Is I like what Steve Martin had to say. And if I could just recut those scenes into the Return of Godzilla, I think you'd have a very, very strong picture there. But as is, the Godzilla 1985 is just kind of a hackneyed version of a much better movie that I never gave credit for being a good movie, because all I had was Godzilla 1985 for so long in my life. It's incredibly disappointing how not good that movie is. But I came away with a big new respect for the Return of Godzilla, and I'm so pumped to be moving on to Godzilla vs. Biollante. The Heisei era is about to kick off, and I'm pumped to move through it. So yeah, let me know, what did you see? Do you like Godzilla 1985? Have you ever seen The Return of Godzilla? Or have you ever seen Godzilla 1985? It's kind of hard to find now because they've kind of tried to erase it, probably for the better. But it is nice to have like the compare and contrast. Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Peace.